be the usual beginning, but we will begin with prayer. Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Let us pray. Lord God, Heavenly Father, we thank you that you gather us around your word and your work. We thank you that your work is not only in a local place like one congregation, but that you have brought your work throughout the world. We thank you for the mission agencies, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. We thank you for the connection that we have had with Kenya and the blessing that you've given to Pamela, Boehle-Silva, our Deaconess, to be able to serve there in so many ways. We thank you for all of the care, the prayers, the support. And now we thank you for this time to see and to hear what you are doing through the hands of your people, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
And before Pamela begins, I'm totally ignorant. But like the Citrus Heights firefighters with the boot that they fill each year, I think this is the money bucket that we're going to try to
Fine by me.
Fine by me.
Good morning. Can you see these okay, or do we need to turn some lights off? You're okay? Okay. So before I start, some of you, I know I do a little, not very often, but I do a little blog post called Always Mercy. And if you're interested in that, basically what I do is mostly updates on the mercy work in Kenya. Sometimes I'll write about some other stuff. Like I said, I don't do it very often. You're not obligated to read it. If you're interested in receiving those, I'll just pass this around. No obligation to buy.
It's wonderful, you guys.
Well, it used to get posted to our website, and you know that's technology I don't know how to do. So if you want to, you're at home, and then that way you can see more photos and kind of keep, you know, in touch with what's happening in Kenya. So. Oh.
And if we're on the list, we don't have to add it again, right?
No, you don't have to add it again. And the reason that doing that is easier is because the blog site I use, Tumblr, if you're like me, I don't want to sign up for something. I don't want to have another password. So with my email, when I don't, right? So I just give you a link and you can click and read it. So it makes your life a little easier without having to remember one more thing. So, well, first of all, thank you for coming, and as always, thank you all for supporting me being gone to go do this mercy work in Kenya. As I've said many times, I bring all of the saints with me to Africa. And of course, you know, we have our sister church there, the Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya, which sends their greetings, as do the amazing deaconesses that I was able to spend about 3 days with in joy and love. And Renee, stop. I have to say, if you read my last blog, I cried more in Kenya than I have in 2 years here. It was just this overwhelming sense of joy and the wonder of being able to go back with these people that have become my family, and I love them so much, and particularly these women. So it was just such a gift to be there, and all of you who supported me in prayers and money and stuff, it was just such a gift. So thanks. All right. And just to let you know, this trip was funded by a grant from Biblical Charities Institute in St. Louis, and that was a $22,000 grant for 2 trips. And I went early January 2020 before COVID hit, which was amazing, and then obviously couldn't go back last year, but this was the second half of bringing together all of the deaconesses in one place to have a seminar. So this just gives you a little map of Kenya. So Nairobi is down here. I always think it's way up here. My geography is terrible. So it's down here. So that's where Ann and I landed. Many of you know Ann Williams. She flew with me this time, which was a great gift, especially with traveling right now. And then we flew over here to Kisumu, which is right on the edge of Lake Victoria. And we've got Uganda, Lake Victoria, and then Tanzania. And then down at the border here is where the Masai Mara is, which is this great, beautiful game park that you see on National Geographic. And down, if you cross the border, then you're into the Serengeti in Tanzania. So we did take Ann on a little trip there because she's never been to Kenya, and she was clicking away the whole time. And then just to give you a little bit of bearing, about in here is where the hospice will be. Okay, so it just kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. This whole area here is called Homa Bay County, and that's kind of where we're going to be. So just...
Where's Lake Victoria?
Lake Victoria is here.
Oh, that, okay. I thought that was the ocean.
Yeah, it's as big as it's huge. So like I say, it borders Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, I'm not sure what else on this side, but yeah, and so then we had deaconesses come from all over Kenya. I mean, even as far as way up top there. So they traveled long distances to get together, and the grant paid for that as well, for their travel. Yes?
And approximately how far is it from Nairobi to where you're doing all the work's being done?
Well, you mean as far as the hospice?
Yeah.
Oh, well, by a plane, I would say probably by car 6 or 7 hours. Yeah. Okay. So this is, I thought this was very interesting, as we're beginning to change our sign. This is the seminary grounds in Matongo, where Pastor Fro and Jan taught for several years. This is where we had our seminar. These are just some deaconesses here. And Fanta is a great beverage in Kenya. It's just something they always have. This is the whole group on the last day with the Archbishop. And so we had a big seminar. But you can see the grounds are very, very beautiful. And so what happens when we gather the deaconesses together, it's kind of a 2 or 3-fold thing. We have theology, which is really important, because that's really what they're hungering for, is doing some real in-depth teaching with them. And as you know, for many years I taught alongside with Dr. Arthur Just. He kind of gently guided me, let's put it that way. But this year I was talking with Pastor Chuchu, who is my dearest friend and colleague, and also my translator, because while most of the deaconesses speak English, because they'll speak Swahili, their national language, English because was a British colony, so English is taught in school, then they'll speak their tribal language. And then if a woman marries a man of a different tribe, she will also learn his tribal language. So they're fluent, but with my accent and the way that I speak, it's difficult for them to understand English, and they don't use it a lot if they're like way up in the rural area. So Pastor Chuchu and he translated for me. And we had been talking about this idea of how the pandemic sort of mirrored, in a way, what was happening back in 2006 with the HIV Aids epidemic, right? So there was lots of fear, lots of anxiety, lots of isolation, lots of misunderstanding about the virus, lots of stigma, lots of shunning, lots of death. And so we sort of said, okay, how do we address this? And so I decided to go through the book of Exodus and look at how God led his people out of captivity with the Egyptians through the Red Sea, which is totally baptismal language, into the wilderness where they wandered and then cried out to God, "Why have you brought us here? You have left us to die. We have no water, we have no food," right? This whole way that we all do. But that God's providential care never left the children of Israel. And that by looking back, we're able to see ourselves in this narrative because that is our story as well, right? And how Christ, as Pastor Fro talked last week about Christocentric, right? Christ was present there. God showed himself in a cloud by day, fire by night, the burning bush, saving his people, you know, his water from a rock, rains down quail and manna. So all of these things we were discussing. And I wish Jan was here because one of a lot of her former students were sitting up front, and we were talking about baptism, and I said, why do you think Jesus needed to be baptized, right? Because he was sinless. And she's like, because he had to step in the waters with all of humanity. And I was like, wow, where'd you hear that? Janet Fro. Yeah, baby. So they are smart, I tell you. It's humbling to teach with them. And I thought, boy, the book of Exodus, this could be like, might be not so hot, but they were just totally engaged the whole time. So that was day one, and then day two, we began to look at how does this road of mercy, how is it practically expressed now in their vocation as deaconesses? So how are they dealing now with anger and isolation and fear and stigma and people out of work and deaconesses not being able to pay school fees or buy food and all of that stuff. So we did a lot of brainstorming around that. And then in the evenings, they had time to just all be together, right? Because they don't get to do that. Some of these women have not seen each other since 2011 or 2012, when we last came to bring them together. So this is a big, big deal for them. And then to be able to just be sisters in Christ who are, you know, working, some of them in isolation, and how discouraging it can be to do God's work. And they don't get, hardly any of them get paid. So this is not something that they're doing to make money. And so anytime that I complain about anything, I am humbly reminded of the gift I have. So this is Anne. She did some teaching around first aid. Many of you remember we collected money for first aid kits. So we were able to give each deaconess a nice first aid kit that they could take out on their home visits with them. And of course, Anne, this is the Energizer. Some of the deaconesses had jobs during the seminar. Things were getting a little sleepy. I couldn't put as many pictures as I wanted, but yeah, they were great. And then startup singing, and of course we were all masked in the beginning, and by the end, they was all off. But
they're already coming off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're already coming off. Yeah, and so yeah, this is all of the first aid kit supplies that we got in Kenya. It's just easier than me trying to pack them. And if you want to read, you know, if you get signed up for my blog, you could read all the little customs fees I got to pay coming through with water filters. So this is, the goal was to get every deaconess a water filter. And for those of you that haven't seen it, the water filters come in a kit like this. Okay, so we packed, between Anne and me, we packed 100 of these. So 2 huge suitcases. Cost me $100 custom fee. And then this is how it is put together. So really what it does is we fill it, and we fill it with dirty water so they can actually see what it looks like filthy river water. It's all brown. And then this part here is the actual filter. So it works kind of like our kidney to filter out all the impurities. And so we demonstrated it, and then it comes out super clear in a big picture. And there's this one deaconess, I don't know if you can see her. She was sitting up front, this beautiful, looks like a princess. And she sees it and she's like, wow, 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 wow. So they just go crazy because they know the gift. So that became our mantra for the rest of the trip. Anytime something great happened, we'd be like, wow, wow, wow. Yeah.
How often do you have to change the filter?
You don't change it. What you do is you back flush it. So there's a little syringe in here,
That's what I wanted too.
and then we instruct them how to get clean, filtered water. You take this apart, and then you just flush it. So we have them do it once a day. Because what happens is, most of the time when their filters stop working, it's because they haven't cleaned it. And then there's another little piece, if their syringe breaks, this fits on a water bottle, like the disposable kind, and they can flush it with that. So there's 2 ways of cleaning it. And then also in the kit is a little drill bit, so that if their bucket cracks, they have the bit to drill another one, and all of the fittings you can put it back together. Yeah.
So Pam, do the buckets, do you guys purchase them over there?
We do. That would be kind of hard to carry.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So we purchase them in country, teach them how to do it, make them do a return demonstration, and they are amazing. And then we replaced several. I mean, some of them are 10 years old. So we say they last forever, but 10 years is a long time. So we replaced quite a few for some of the deaconesses. Oh, Rich, this is your my friend Rich is visiting. He's a good friend of mine. We write together, and he's been graciously supporting Deaconess Mary. You'll see more of her later. She's one of my very dear friends. And then just, some of the deaconesses here, their beauty, and they bring their babies with them.
Oh, there's a baby in there?
Oh, yeah.
It's not a back.
Let's see. See it? Right here.
Oh my gosh.
So they'll wrap them in a conga, which is just a big piece of cloth, and they just wrap them all up, and there they are.
Oh.
So it's
I
just
know.
They wrap it across their chest.
There's another one. So they're just kind of hanging out, this is during break, but you can just see their beauty and their joy.
What's the temperature, weather like?
Right now, it's warm, so 80s. Up in Matongo, it does get cold. In fact, one day it was the weirdest thing. We had it wasn't even just hail, it was ice. Big chunks of ice. I'd never seen that there. It was like, how does that happen when 1 minute it's warm and then it's ice? Yeah, and then Anne's like, look down, and on the floor has become flooded, and of course that's where the power strip is, and my phone used to be. She's like, oh, I'm so glad your phone's not there. And of course the power goes out, so all of my well-planned slides are like none. But yeah, so these women are all way up north in Pocot, and you can see they have a very distinctive face. They do a lot of shells in their hair and beaded work, but they're just beautiful, wonderful women. There's more deaconesses hanging out. Yeah, and she's new, but these two I've known since 2006. Lorna Meeker, some of you know Lorna Meeker. This is her sister-in-law, Agnes. And this, one of the deaconesses, we gave her another bucket because she had given her water filter to a prison. that's where she works.
Oh.
Yeah, so she had, because she wanted to, these women to have clean water, so when she went back, she took another one to them and then showed us a picture. But that's how they are. Like, oh, somebody needs something, I think I'll just give them mine. Yeah. And then one of the deaconesses, while we were in session, there was some big wind or tornado or something up north, and ripped off the iron sheets off her roof. So with the extra money that people have donated, we'll do things like fix her roof for her, buy her more iron sheets. And many of the deaconesses were unable to pay school fees because of COVID. They, you know, their husbands weren't working. And I learned something new. I always thought that government schools were free. Well, what government schools are is they provide a principal and the teachers, but you still have to buy your uniforms and pay for school fees. I did not know that. I always thought people wanted to send their kids to different boarding schools because they were better, and the government schools were bad. That's not true. So I learned something. So school fees are a big deal all the time for these families. And then we, some of my favorite things to do are hospital and home visits with deaconesses or visiting a deaconess. So this is, Dennis, you remember these guys. Yes. This is in the slums of Kibera. So in Nairobi, there's actually 3 major slums, maybe there's more, but there's 2 that I've been to that are kind of side by side and really big. So Kibera is one and Kawangware is another. And I have seen these women for many years, and they're happy right here because her daughter had gotten married and the Lutheran Church had supported her in her wedding and all of this stuff. So they're talking about the wedding and just their joy, and this little, you can see him, that's her grandson. But many of these, all of these are widows. Some are HIV positive, and they live in just a place that's no bigger than half the size of the kitchen in the church. Yeah, no running water. They do have electricity. So, yeah.
How is HIV being treated? Is it at all?
It is, yeah. So they've made great strides with HIV AIDS in Kenya because the antiretroviral drugs are free. So there's free testing and those drugs are available. So they really have made a lot of progress. Now, it's probably like the US, right? There's a generation that's sort of forgotten about the devastation of AIDS, and so sometimes behaviors begin to slip again. So I don't know if that's true in Kenya, but you know, it's the big push and the remembrance of all the orphans may have faded, but no, it's not like it was.
Is the drug like it was in the beginning where it almost killed you before,
AZT.
or is it?
No.
It's not AZT, but it's something different.
It's an antiretroviral. They do pretty well on it as long as they have enough food.
Yeah. Okay.
So that can be the issue. If they don't have enough food, then it doesn't sit well with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is the COVID in the slums?
That is such the amazing thing that I still can't figure out, because I thought it would just devastate the slums. I did. I mean, there's no social distancing. They're not vaccinated, and if anyone was gonna be vaccinated, they would be the last to get it. And I remember early on when COVID hit, and they lost all their work. So many people that live in the slums leave the slum to go work as a housekeeper or menial jobs, and then come in back home. So when everything shut down, they had nothing. No food, no nothing. And so trucks were being, brought in for food, and people were just going berserk. So I figured they would just be annihilated, and they weren't. I don't know what that's about.
Immune system.
Maybe,
If they live in dirt, they have better immune system.
It may be because they've weathered so much there. I do need to do some research on it. So, this is, Deaconess, did you visit Virginia?
I don't remember.
Okay, she lives in what's called, part of Calgary called the Congo. One of the worst parts of the slums that honestly, when I'm in the slums, I feel pretty okay. I'm aware, I mean, I keep my phone, everything's tucked away, but the Congo is just lots of men drinking, hanging out, it's creepy. But she actually owns this house. So in this slum, Kawangware, I learned this, you can actually own a house. It can be, you're inherited, you inherit something. So that's why she doesn't leave. Where would she go? She's HIV positive. You can see how skinny she is. She's almost died many times, and Deaconess Karen visits her faithfully and just brings her Christ's love and mercy. And she, you know, she's trying to stay alive for her children. You can see, I have the book Visitation here. One of the other gifts that we're trying to get to every deaconess is the book Visitation. So I carried over 28 of those. They're about 30 bucks a piece. But we use those, teach them how to use it. And this is Sarah. I met her in 2008, and she was probably 3 with diabetes. And I sent out an email because I was just like, we got to get this girl some help. Like, what are we going to do? And this friend of mine, actually Callie went to his church when she was going to Willamette University, and I'd gone up there and met him, Don. He has supported her ever since. And then he supports several other orphans and deaconesses. I get money every month from him, but she's doing great. She's at Deaconess Mary's school. One of the deaconesses opened a school in the slums. I know. And her husband works for the government. He's an economist. She does not need to work, but she still works in the slums because she used to live there. And but yeah, it's just you know, these people that I just love so much. So this is Pastor Choo Choo. As I say, one of my dearest friends, the most amazing man of mercy I've ever met in my entire life. It blows me away. And this is Lorna Meeker's father, Pastor Olak. So you can see he's had both his legs amputated and just keeps on going. So
That's Deaconess Agnes?
Yeah, that's his daughter-in-law. Yeah. So we went to visit him one day. And this is a deaconess, Beatrice, that I've known since 2006, and she was hospitalized in a government hospital. You can't see it because, you know, we're not allowed to take photos of the other patients, but in this room that's about a quarter of the size of this, I think there were 8 patients. Yeah. And, but she's has issues. They're saying diabetes. Thing with Kenya, you don't get a good diagnosis, and they don't tell you the whole diagnosis. So I'm kind of wondering if what else might be going on. But also with the funds that you all donated, we were able to buy her a glucometer and medicine and a visit to a private doctor to get a little bit better care. But yeah, it was nice to be able to see her. And the only reason we actually got in to visit is because the vice president of the hospital is someone Pastor Choo Choo knows, and we were making a visit with him, so because otherwwise family were waiting for hours to visit their loved ones. So her husband is a pastor as well. And then some of you remember Mama Karen.
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, we bought her a new mattress. Do you remember those pictures of her mattress that was just awful and no sheets and nothing? So we came to visit her, Deaconess Mary, she brought us, and she was sitting outside under the tree. So that was nice that she was out of her hut, doing pretty well. And she remembered us, and we just got to have a lovely visit, and just, yeah, it was fun to see her. And then this little boy, that's David, that crawled into my lap when
That's so
Dennis and
amazing.
I went in 2019, and then I saw him 2020, and there he was again.
He would come to her and just automatically crawl right up into her lap.
It was the
and go
weirdest
for
thing.
church, and his mother was like, what is going on?
But I found out that his uncle is Pastor Paul, so Beatrice's
Pastor.
husband. I mean, it's just crazy, these little connections. The other person who was a baby magnet was Anne. Anne she would just go to, she'd just go to these kids, and she just fit right in. She'd think she'd been there 10 times. I know, they're just the most beautiful faces in the world. And then just a little, Anne took a lot of photos, so I just let her, and then I had her send them to me. I've been there enough that I don't take as many pictures because, I've seen it, and but it is fascinating, how women, it's amazing what they transport on their heads. Buckets of water, buckets of corn maze, bananas, you name it. I wouldn't even be able to lift it up, let alone get it on my head. Yeah, it's amazing, and they learn that from an early age. I was talking to Pastor Choo-Choo's daughter, Eva. She's 24 and in law school, and we were saying, did you have to learn how to carry stuff on her head? And she says, yeah, in boarding school, because you'd have to go down and get the water, and so that's how you carried it. So every girl learned how to do that.
Do they have a special hat that makes their head flat?
Some people wear, like there's a ring, or like a rolled up cloth thing that they put on their head, yeah. But it's amazing how they can balance that.
It's amazing how strong we must really be. Our spine and everything.
It is
To
amazing.
hold that up.
I know.
That's amazing.
And motorcycles, or motorbikes they call them, are one of the main modes of transportation in Kenya. And you'll see, so you've got a person, you've got all this stuff. Sometimes you'll see 4 people on a motorbike. It's kind of crazy what they transport on them, but that is a means of getting around that's pretty inexpensive. And one of the questions Anne had was, well, are these guys just kind of, lower caste or whatever? And Eva said, no, many of these are college graduates that can't get a job. So not the unemployment, but the employment rate in Kenya is 20%. 20% of people that have what we would be considered a job. Now, other people do this, or sell vegetables, or sell things along the street, but a job, like most of us consider a job, is 20%. So you've got a lot of college graduates out there trying to hustle just to make a living. And there's just some of the beautiful sunsets over there. It's really pretty. This is typical, going down a road. Could be a main road, could be, goats and cows and,
Deaconess,
yeah.
does the Muslim terrorist enter into the equation?
Not so much here. They're more up in the northeast by Somalia. So that I would not go up there. So that's far from where I am. There are Muslims practicing in Kenya, but Kenya's mostly a Christian country. But down here, as far as Muslim stuff, I say, otherwise you have to be really careful. So I never go anywhere by myself. Anne wanted to go for a walk, and I remember being that way. Like, I want to go see all this stuff, and like, no, no, we can't leave the compound, and you got to have your window rolled up when you're going through a city, so they don't pick your phone, and there's things you just got to be careful. These people are poor. They're kind of desperate.
Yeah, did you eat any of the goats?
I did. I love goat. Yeah, it's good. I don't know if I ate that one, but I don't know which one I ate.
I remember somewhere in Africa they were saying that even the low-income people have cell phones to, either issue to them or anything, so that they have that communication. Did you find that to be true?
Yes, and it's for two reasons. One is that cell phone is a major way in which they give money. M-Pesa.
Bank.
Yeah, so it's their banking. So most people have a cell phone. Now, it might be something cheap. Not everyone's got internet, like an iPhone or something. I mean, I brought a couple old iPhones over, and those are like gold because they're expensive there. Yeah, but they do. Yeah, you're right. This is called a tuk-tuk or an auto rickshaw, another way of getting around, and you hear them putting down the street. Lots of noise in Kenya. This is called a matatu. So you can see all the stuff they pile on there, and that would be just packed with people. Now, of course, in the early days of COVID, that whole system almost shut down. And then when they opened, it would be carrying a third of the passengers. So you can see how their economy was just really, really affected. People were starving. And we did send money to help with some of that.
And Pamela, they were way more strict about things there as far as legally is concerned.
They had curfews for people, and you could not travel outside your county unless you had probably special permission. And then if you didn't have a mask or you were out after curfew, you would actually get thrown in jail, and you had to pay for it. So it was pretty draconian, but they also don't have the infrastructure in their hospitals to care for a pandemic. I mean, they just don't. So I don't know the numbers of people who have died from COVID there. I need to do a little research on that. Pastor Choo was named to the Hospice County. He was on the COVID pandemic board doing some mercy work. This is actually on the border of our property at the hospice. I'll talk about that later. Another
Deaconess?
Yeah.
What if you didn't have a mask? Did you just have to stay in home? Yes.
Or try to get one.
And they just didn't give masks out?
No, I doubt it. So yeah, so what was happening, you'd have to pay for one. So that's part of the reason that we sent money, and I'm sure they made them. Like someone probably got industrious and started making them, but they still have to pay for them. So I don't know if they would let them wear a cloth around their mouth. Yeah. Yeah, things that we kind of take for granted. That's just a butcher. So not a lot of refrigeration. This is even at the hotel. They're out in the kind of in the back, and I think they're doing.
It's like plantains.
Plantains, yeah. So it's just kind of how they cook and make things work with a big old knife. Okay, so Anna and I are staying at the hotel, which is actually a really nice hotel compared to when I first started going. But still, they wash all the sheets and towels by hand and hang them up. Yeah, so they're not used because electricity is expensive, as is buying a washer and a dryer. So it's all hung out on the line, and but these are these ladies doing laundry every day, and we'd say, you don't have to change my sheets. Just, it's fine. They just couldn't understand that we didn't have to have our sheets changed every day, It's like, oh, please don't go out there and do that every day. And this is at the government hospital, so they're hanging all their stuff out too. As you can see where just clotheslines still are working. I happen to like clothes hung on the line. It reminds me of my childhood. And this is just some example. Actually, this is the goat right here. It was good. And Sukuma wiki is collard greens that, Sukuma wiki means to make the week last longer. So almost, you can buy collard greens almost everywhere and people grow it. Because it grows for a long period of time. And then they saute it with onions and garlic and tomatoes. So they eat it at almost every day. And then this is ugali, which is the kind of polenta-like, made out of maize, and they make usually a big mound of it and cut it off, and then you grab a little piece of it, make a ball, and then soup up your food with it, if you're eating with your hands. Yeah. And then over here, what do we have? Chapate, and then vegetables. Oh yeah, and Tusker. I do have to say, I was very happy that the hotel now has a bar.
It's no longer a dry place.
Oh, now the truth. I know, it's terrible. Every day Ann and I'd be like, is it happy hour?
We're not gonna send you anymore.
I know, I paid for that myself, okay? I don't put that on the tab.
I'll find you a beer if you're in Kenya.
Thanks.
Pam, I noticed the beer's about gone, but you just got your food, so.
Yeah, that's kind of how it went. We start with the beer.
Good bread.
Is it cold or warm, the beer?
Well, cold. That's what we would request. Yeah, so they usually had it.
No.
Yeah.
Pamela?
Yeah.
Is it okay to eat salads over there? No.
No.
No, I don't. And so on this plate, there was some raw stuff that we gave to Pastor Choo Choo. Ann and I both ended up with some stomach issues, and we're thinking it might have been from this restaurant. We're not sure. And that's always a little precarious when you're, like one day we had, what did she call it? She's so cute. We just had 10-hour church. So we drove 2 hours to get to church. Took forever to start. 2.5-hour church service. Then they had lunch for everybody. And then we had to make home visits, and they had another lunch. And then we made more home visits, and there was another lunch. And Ann says, I'm not getting out of the car if you say there's food. So we didn't eat that one, but we both had a couple just kind of, not great days, but yeah, but we eat fruit if it's peeled, and anything that's cooked. Or you could eat a cucumber if it was peeled, but you gotta really know the kitchen, because they don't all use filtered water. So at where we stayed, there's actually a filter like that in our kitchen, and I know that everything's cleaned that way, so most everything's safe to eat there. Yeah. Even the juice. Like I wouldn't drink juice in a hotel, because I don't know what they mixed it with.
So their stomach flora is tailored to that, or do they get sick from their own food?
They don't so much get sick from their food, but they will get sick from the water. So that's why water filters are such a gift, because you'll miss, oh boy, I gotta speed up. You'll miss work and all sorts of stuff from all the waterborne diseases. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna speed up. Okay, this is actually for the sake of Jan and Charlie Froh. Because Ann and I, while we're at Matongo, we're supposed to stay on campus. So they had a little guest house for us. So I'm in there kind of unpacking, and Ann goes, we got a problem. Toilet doesn't flush. I'm like, okay, whoa. Okay, I'm not staying here. So then Andrew says, oh, I can fix it. And it's a very long story, but in the end, this is what he's trying to fix it with, a machete. And so Ann says to him, Andrew, I want to see 10 fingers by the time you're done. Right? He never got it fixed. We didn't stay there. But they know him well, because they've had him try to fix things too. Oh, and this is just a creative way of using a mask. And as the children magnet there. And it was her birthday.
Aww.
Yeah. So this was so sweet. This is the, I know. This is the staff at the hotel, and so they did a surprise party for her, which is so sweet. They all ate dinner with us, which they don't, I mean, you just don't do that. But they ate dinner, and then one of the workers had made a beautiful cake. And so it's got her picture on it and everything. She had no idea. They came out singing and banging drums, and she just cried and cried. And she was, this is the best birthday I've ever had. It was so sweet.
Look at that candle. Gee.
So just some pictures of, going into the Mara. This is us at the border of Kenya and Tanzania. I especially like that we hired a guide with his gun. We never let him touch it. Zebras, they call them. I know, it's really, if any of you ever can get there, it's unbelievable. Lions. I know. It's amazing.
Nice kitty.
This cheetah was like
Leopard.
from here, oh yeah, leopard, from here to that speaker. Yeah, and I've never seen a leopard. I've seen a cheetah, but I've never seen a leopard the whole time I've gone.
Is this in the Serengeti?
This is in the Masai Mara, which borders the Serengeti. This is, so one day, the day before we were leaving, my friend Mary, pastor's wife, says, I have to go to the country to buy some chickens. I'm like, okay. I come back and the whole back of the SUV in the back is filled with chickens. And then they had like a chicken brigade killing these, slaughtering chickens. It was just, everybody was doing it. And they had 20, 25 chickens done in about 45 minutes. Wow. I did not eat chicken that night.
They're all wearing white.
And they all have white on. Yeah. Cooking outside. All right, so we'll get to now the Hospice Project. So we made just amazing, amazing strides in the work. All of a sudden it just like went boom after years and years and years of waiting. So this is the name. Rehema is Swahili for mercy. An open door that came out of just some discussions, and the idea is that our doors are open for mercy to anybody that walks through. It's the whole idea. We'll probably call it a comprehensive care center because there's still a little bit of a stigma with the word hospice and palliative care. And so to enter into the community, we're probably going to start with the clinic and just provide that kind of care. And as we get more money and able to build, then we'll build the hospice portion. But we'll just kind of do it in bits and pieces. This is the road that borders our property, which is right here. I say ours, I mean ours. This is the property. Isn't it nice? It's just so peaceful and quiet and lovely. A couple trees, we're kind of figuring where we're going to place stuff. This is them drilling for water. And then they have this really interesting way as they get to each layer, they take a sample, as deeper and deeper they go, and that whole thing ended up being filled till about here. And then they send it away for geological studies so they can tell exactly what they've gone through, but it's very interesting. And then each pipe has a particular length. So Pastor Chuchu would hire, well, he didn't hire, he just asked him to come and watch how many pipes they actually put in the ground so that we would know the exact depth that they actually went. So we paid for 106 meters, not 120 meters. So that was an exciting day. That was right after the Deaconess seminar. So we come onto the land and they're drilling. And this is the water that was coming out that first day. And this is the water when they're finally hitting the bottom and we have a pump. So that's actually pumping out now really, really clean water. And there's, I don't know if I've got a picture of it, all the community kids were there with their jugs and filling water when that was being pumped. I didn't see that happened after we left, but it's school kids kind of taking a look.
And who's got somebody's hand there?
Yeah, and she just goes out and holds people's hands and they're fine, so yeah, it was fun. But I don't think she's wearing her mask as a ponytail that day. Something else. Yeah. So we've got, on this land, we've got the water being pumped. We're gonna build a water tower, so we've got big holders and solar to use as pumps as well. We're in negotiation to buy the land there and on the backside so that we can expand a little bit as we grow. We're registered now with the government with the name. So we had to pick a name while we were there because they have to run it through their system to see if anybody else has this name. So it's now registered. We're a limited liability company. That's all done. We're in the process of getting a bank account. And we're just going. Yeah, we have a board of directors in the making, and we're redefining the original building was a big 2-story building, and we decided that was too institutional looking, that we wanted something that was a little more homey and intimate after visiting some hospices. And so they're in the process of getting those done and consulting with a landscape architect, because the whole idea is that we want the beauty of the land to be brought inside for healing, because that's, you know, part of the healing process. We also visited with the head of Kenya Hospice and Palliative Care Association for all of Kenya, and they're very excited about the project, totally back us, said it's needed there, whatever we can do to help you, gave us lots of hints, working alongside the Ministry of Health. So it's, everybody that we met was very, very supportive. Anything we can do to help you. There's not competition, like, oh, you're gonna take our market. They're like, no, we're overflowing, we need something here. So yeah, it's just kind of going. And then Rick, I took this for you. Simon was everywhere. Everywhere we went, there was Simon, and he had a bunch of twins. I'm not kidding you. I don't remember seeing Simon everywhere in Kenya, but he was there. So he's the guardian of our land. Okay, so you know, I took that just for you. So anyway, any questions? I know I'm yeah.
Since everyone here probably knows Anne, can you briefly tell us what she's doing now here in the United States?
Oh, Anne, yeah, she and her husband moved to Tucson, Arizona. So they're enjoying life of cycling, golf, stuff like that. They bought a house there. And then she still does her consulting work with the state of California. She does disaster planning and emergency preparedness. So she was very instrumental in helping us create this vision for the hospice, because she's done a lot of this kind of work, very detail oriented, so she's a really good asset to the team. Yeah. So, yeah.
Is the Kenyan government fairly decent to deal with? Or is it
Yes. Yeah, well, Pastor Choo-Choo has developed really good relationships with the Ministry of Health in his area, and he's also friends with some physicians, one of which is on our board. So he just has all these connections, and that's part of what you need to do, and hopefully they will supply at least a nurse, maybe a physician. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the biggest challenge that you're overcoming now, like as you start the processes that you described? I would say my biggest challenge is the fear of how are we going to pay for this, and the thing is, it just happens, right? So being able to start small and do it in phases, I think is going to be more palatable and more reasonable. So we don't, we're not going to borrow money. We're just going to build as we have the money. And
That I think is the biggest one. Otherwise, things are just kind of really happening. It's amazing. Yeah.
Who is the group that you, when you talk about we and the board, what is this group actually?
Right now, I'm working in conjunction with Pastor Chuchu in Kenya. And then we work with a nonprofit in Texas called Curatio Mundi that also supports Kenya. But we are becoming our own company, if you will. So when I say we, I mean all of us that are supporting this project. And right now, the board of directors, like that had to be on the title, are myself, Ann Williams, and Pastor Chuchu. So we're our own kind of, it's really a community service, working with the community and the government.
You did say LLC, right? Can you repeat your?
Limited Liability Company.
So what is the full name of your?
Rahema Open Door.
Oh.
Yep.
What are the insects like?
Oh. Well, when you cover yourself with DEET and take anti-malaria meds, it's pretty serious. So I kind of cover head to toe, and it's really the mosquitoes that you got to worry about. I don't know. We're kind of waiting, hopefully, to go over and swing a hammer or two, but we'll kind of see when that all sets out. Let's see. Any other questions? It's hot in here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for all of your support. I really, really mean that. It's just, I wish that I could take each one of you there to see the faces and the gratitude of the people when we, help them, and just their joy and their beauty, and it's amazing.
Real quick, did you see one organization was doing like a merry-go-round or to drill well water up in Africa, where it would be like a merry-go-round, where and you would spin it around and pump the water out? You didn't encounter anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.